I'm going to hit record.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody. This is our fourth in a series of our practice series of topics. We've been really introducing folks to the different elements of the wellness wheel, at least the ones that we use, that talks about what are things that we have in our control that when we get agitated, we should consider could look into, because maybe we're being activated because we're dehydrated, or maybe I can change my state through moving my body. Maybe I'm not getting enough sleep. And so with each week, we're hoping to give you enough information that if you decide to play with us starting in May on our 30-day practice series, that you can choose an area around a practice that you can that will help you kind of maybe manage your state more effectively. I'll give you a great example. This week, I had to go to Florida, and Dr. Trish, who did the breathwork stuff that we did, she had made said a quote that really resonated with me, which was trust your exhale, right? Which is focus on the exhale. And part of that is to kind of activate the parasympathetic nervous system, right? So I'm sleeping in Florida at about 2 a.m. A car alarm starts to go off like consistently outside of my room. And I have to get up at 6 because I got to get ready for the meeting starting at 8. And I'm already on East Coast time and haven't been traveling very much. And literally it was going off, and then it would shut off, and then it would go off again for literally 3 hours. I just kept saying to myself, trust my exhale. And I kept practicing that, and I wasn't feeling agitated. I was really, in a sense, managing my state or my energy, as we'll talk about today. And it made a huge difference because I wasn't exhausted throughout the day. I actually had a lot more energy than I thought I could muster, considering sleep is really important to me. I think I ended up with like 4.5 hours of sleep that night. And so I share that because these little tips that these experts have been sharing with us, we're hoping that you will take them personally and start to think about where is an area that I could start a practice. And so I'm really excited about this evening's conversation with Rhonda Duesterberg. I met Rhonda and working on this project in Florida, actually. She's been quarterbacking a really big initiative, and she has done a phenomenal job kind of keeping everything moving very smoothly. And when she conducts herself, it's very calming and very productive. And so I started to learn more about her. Turns out she is has a medical degree in bioenergy, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. But tonight's topic is really about the power of thought and how thoughts can really kind of play into part of that wellness wheel. And I was sharing with Rhonda before we let everyone in that when I was diagnosed with cancer about 8 or 9 years ago, my little voice in my head was going off, and I just asked my physician, even though I study the brain and I thought I'd had it under control, I still would kind of start freaking myself out. I'd feel something in my body. I'd be like, oh, there's a tumor, and I'm kind of getting agitated. And I asked my physician, what do I do? And he said, simply say, cancel, stop. And it got me to just put on that braking system and allow me to kind of get myself out of that wheel, that thought process that can be really agitating. So I'm really excited to introduce Rhonda and jump into the conversation about the power of thought. So Rhonda, again, thank you for being here. I want to kind of start by just allowing you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work, because you have a doctorate in biomedicine, you're a Reiki master, you have a lot of stuff. So just tell us about you and kind of the work that you do in the bioenergy work, and then we can kind of start talking specifically about the power of thought.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's great to see you all, and it's good to be here. And thank you, Scott, for inviting me. I was one of those people that turned 50, God knows how many years ago, but turned 50. My world was kind of not where I wanted to be. I got laid off from a job that I've had for a long time, making a 6-figure income. And I decided that I needed to reinvent myself because I wasn't happy where I was. And I ended up meeting some people who were attending the school called the Institute of Bioenergetic Medicine. Now, I've been in the learning consulting business forever. I love learning. And so I decided that this whole notion about energetics became very interesting to me. So at 50, I decided I would plunge in and get a doctorate degree in bioenergetic medicine and natural medicine. Not remembering my biology or biochemistry or any of my anatomy and physiology that I had as an undergraduate, jumping into a doctorate degree was quite the experience. But what was really a great thing that I learned from this is that, and I'm sure you all have heard this or even believe it or know it yourselves, is that everything is energy, right? So quantum physics has brought in and ushered in a new understanding about everything. Everything has a vibratory pattern to it. Everything has a frequency to it. And so I decided that I would keep doing the learning consulting because I think everyone in every business needs a little guidance and love occasionally. And that's what Scott was referring to, is that we're on this really big project and there are a few people that struggle or cause others to struggle. And I see it as an opportunity to really kind of help them through their stressors, their energetics in their body and how they show up that causes people to resist what they're sharing or what they're presenting.
So in the practice of your medicine practice, then what are some of the things that people come to you with?
You know, basically the people who come to me are the people who have exhausted Western medicine. They are so frustrated with feeling bad. They're tired of not understanding why they feel bad, and they're tired of taking medication. The medication isn't working. Recently, I've been seeing a whole lot of mid-teens to early 20s that are suicidal, struggling with what we went through in the 2020s. And I have been also receiving a whole lot of people who feel lost. They just, because we're in a world now where information is readily accessible to us, you know, this whole age of self-care. You can read any book, lots of books. There's lots of YouTubes. This is another example of where you can go to get information. So there is information out there almost to a degree where it's overwhelming, right? And so instead of seeing myself as a practitioner or a wellness coach, which you hear about that these days, functional medicine is now the big new thing. I see myself as an interpreter, a translator. So people come to me and say, I have these issues. This is what my doctor's saying. This is what the TV's telling me I should do. This is what my friends and colleagues are telling me to do. And I don't know what to do. So I actually use bioenergetic medicine or technology to kind of unpack what's going on inside of them as it relates to energetic stressors. And then we kind of reframe that. And that's where the power of the thought discussion comes in with us. So I get people from everything you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. So when you're helping someone, because there's a lot of good stuff coming out around heart rate variability, mm-hmm. And more or less what's called HRV training, as and it's also tied to the vagus nerve. And for those of you who are kind of new to those kind of language, there is a lot of the neurobiology that is taking place. And so can you speak to kind of that, that kind of, because I think, we talked about the Apollo Neuro and some of these tools for biofeedback. Because I found that in our conversations that we've been doing within the flow practice, I think I shared with you, the stages of flow that we're working through or helping people understand is, the struggle phase, the release phase, the flow phase, and the recovery phase. And we're really focusing on the struggle and the recovery. And, I think I shared with you, we want to help normalize the struggle. And we can riff on that in just a minute. But in essence, teaching people to struggle away. As you said, people are kind of feeling lost. Right? People are really struggling. And what I found is that, especially a lot of professionals I work with, they're not used to struggling. to the degree that they have had over the last year because of COVID. And a lot of it's tied to because they're no longer in control or feel like they're in control, which I think was a myth to begin with. But the idea is helping people struggle more effectively. And so I'd like to get a sense of, what are some of the ways you look at that? Because you really reframed the struggle piece a little bit ago. So maybe we could start there and then move forward.
Yeah, it was interesting as we were prepping for this call. And Scott, you said something about part of what you're doing is normalizing struggle, or you're learning to struggle well. Mm-hmm. And I had to ask the question about why normalize struggle. All struggle is your subconscious mind resisting change. That's all struggle is. So you have to ask, well, all right, if that's the case, then what's going on in my subconscious mind that's causing this resistance to change, that's making me feel like I'm struggling with something? And here is the neuroscience, and I'll try to help with that to kind of unpack that a little bit. So there's a lot of science out there. Some people believe that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. All right. Or some people have now, the new science is kind of backed off and said, well, actual thoughts are about 6,200 thoughts per second a day. Okay. So they're just kind of trying to figure out how many thoughts are we having. And interestingly enough, I wrote this down. Our nervous system receives, or is being, we're receiving 11 million bits of information a second. Mm-hmm. Our nervous system is gathering that much, but our conscious mind can only manage about 50, I think it's, 50 bits of information per second. So 11 million information, 11 million bits of information, not thoughts, but bits of information our nervous system is gathering, but we're only processing 50.
Yeah, maybe we should pause there so people can kind of get a grasp of this. So when we talk about the 11 million bits of information, that is your brain is kind of managing the cellular regeneration. Like when you lose cells and regenerate cells, that's data going into the brain, the breath, the skin. So I mean, it's there's
your
so much
sensory system.
Yeah, it's all the sensory system.
Everything.
So getting your head around all the things. If we were aware of everything that was going on, we would probably lose it. And so again, it's that brain's ability to kind of hone in and focus. And that's a big part of what are we focusing on, which is a thought, in a way, like I'm choosing to focus on this, or I'm choosing to focus on that, and I think that was, it kind of then hones in on where that light goes from a focus perspective. So keep going. I mean, I just wanted to pause there. Yeah.
Perfect pause, because now I want you to think about this. Only 5% of those 6,200 thoughts per second a day, or the 70,000 thoughts a day, or the 11 million bits of information, only 5% are actually new thoughts a day. Only 5% are new thoughts a day. Therefore, 95% of the thoughts you are having in a day are repetitive habitual thoughts that you're having over and over and over again. So that means that your subconscious mind is managing 95% of the experiences you are having in your day. 5% is new thoughts, conscious controlled new thoughts. Now, out of those 95% of thoughts you're having in the subconscious mind, how many of those are negative thoughts? How many are positive thoughts? It makes you think. It makes you think about, if I'm having a trigger and I'm reacting to something, all right, that is a subconscious thought, that is a programmed habitual thought that is triggering. How many new thoughts am I having that can override or create a new habitual thought pattern? Now I'm going to take a pause here for you to kind of soak that in for a minute. So this does have a huge effect on our nervous system's response. So basically think about this. What is a thought? All right. Thought is a thinking process in the body. Well, what's creating the thought? What is the thinking process occurring? And one of the simplest ways to look at this is we have an ongoing 11 million bits of information coming at us every day. Our sensory system is trying to gather and process this input. All right. That is what we call an experience. So your physiology is experiencing the sensory information that's coming in. All right. That feeling or that sensory experience you're having inside is a biochemistry shift that goes in your body. And what happens is that feeling gets attached to the meaning you are assigning, the thought you are having about that experience. All right. So that's an example would be, I am going to go to a meeting with Scott, like we were saying, and we know we have a challenging, some people in our group that are a bit challenging, right? So I can sit in my meeting and having an experience of this individual's behavior, right? So I'm having an experience of it. I get to choose how I assign the meaning, which shifts the way I feel inside. So I can choose to be frustrated, right? I can choose to say, she gets under my skin. Or I can choose to say, like Scott said, stop. No. I choose to experience this person in a better way, in a more positive way. So I get curious about why she might be behaving that way. I get curious, or I think about, how can I be a light in her darkness? How can I show up in a way that makes her feel better?
One of the strategies I used to do, I still do actually, the people that are the most challenging people in my lives, I've turned into my teacher because I love to learn, right? So what I've done is clearly, if I don't have good rapport with somebody, I clearly haven't learned the lesson of how to connect with them yet. So they're going to inform me on how to connect with them. So instead of blaming them or I'm feeling this way because of them, I'm really cautious of blaming, because that, the meaning is, they're making me feel something rather than saying, hey, in their presence, I feel really frustrated because I haven't figured it out. So teach me, so it's a big reframe. It's hard. I mean, it's a simple thing to say. It's just a hard thing to practice if you haven't worked on it, because there's a lot of people out there that are going to be excellent teachers for all of us.
Well, the biggest thing is even those who are teachers, the challenge we have is to take that pause, right? And to reframe it, as you were saying, because what this means is it's not the other person. It's how we are receiving the information and how we're assigning a meaning to it, to the situation. So it's really on us. So if we were to take that pause and just do a check-in with the nervous system and say, oh, wow, I don't like this feeling. I get to choose not to have this feeling. So it has nothing to do with the other person or the external stimulus. It's how we're responding to it. And it requires us to take a pause. It requires us to check in with our nervous system and say, ooh, I'm a bit triggered, right? I am struggling. What do I do? And so that's where the tools come into play, like the breathing, get into a rhythmic breathing, not just necessarily just breathing in deep and exhaling, but in order to regulate the nervous system, it's a motion, it's a frequency, it's a vibratory pattern. It's called self-regulation. So you do breathe, but you breathe in a pattern that kind of allows you to get into a rhythmic, vibratory feeling, energetic. So I'm going to talk energetics. So everything's a vibratory pattern. And when you are out of sync, it means at a molecular level, you have a wobble going on, right? And so everything's about vibratory patterns. So if you're breathing, breathe in a pattern. You hear the 4-7-8, which is often out there breathing. Dr. Andrew Wiles is famous for saying, breathe in 4, hold for 7, exhale 8, or breathe in, 8, and then breathe out 8, whatever pattern you want to take in. It's about the rhythm of the breath.
Which is that heart rate, HRV training, because it's also getting into coherence. Because what happens when we get into those rhythms, your blood pressure, your heart rate variability, they all get in sync.
So let's unpack that a little bit.
Sure.
So we're talking about the power of thought, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What part of the body's thinking?
All of it. Well, I'm thinking of Lisa Feldman Barrett's work, where, in interoception, where the brain is the body, the body's the brain. There is no mind-body connection.
But thinking creates neurochemical transition.
Right.
There's only 3 areas of the body that has the capacity or the ability to have that kind of neurotransmitter exchange. What are the 3 areas of the body? The brain is one. Yeah, we know that. That's
Heart.
The obvious one.
Heart.
The heart is the other one. What's
The
the
gut.
third one? And the gut.
Yeah.
Right. The heart, the brain, and the gut. So the brain starts the thinking. Well, the brain has the ability to analyze, process. It has filters. Does that make sense? So changing the power of thought should not be a brain exercise, because there's too many filters. And the filters tend to get in our way, right? So the heart doesn't have filters. And the heart actually has the largest electromagnetic field of any organ in the body. And this has been proven. This is science-based, evidence-based science, where the heart's electromagnetic field can go up to 15 to 19 feet beyond where our body is.
So you're saying, in terms of the sensors out in my environment, if I'm in that room, they're reading the electromagnetic pulse from my heart.
Right.
Okay.
So it has the largest sensory system, if you will, and it's the largest thinking part of the body. The heart is. And it's also the truth and the most authentic. Now, the gut is how you process that information. So heart rate variability is really about heart-brain coherence, right? So if my heart and my brain are connected in a great vibratory pattern where they're working together, then you will be able to be in a state of well-being a whole lot easier. You'll be able to self-regulate in your nervous system and so on.
Mark Porter just said the heart works like Bluetooth.
That's a great way of putting it. The heart is like Bluetooth, and it just goes out and picks out all kinds of signals. And so if you really want to start self-regulating, you need to be connected at the heart. And that requires the breath work that you're sharing, right? It requires being able to take a pause, just let your thoughts flow freely, name them, and then reframe it. So like if I'm frustrated, right, for whatever reason, I can feel that agitation in my body. I'm frustrated. So I'm going to say, I am frustrated, and I get to choose not to be frustrated. So I'm going to take that frustration and I'm going to reframe it. I'm going to say, I'm frustrated because I have a stuck program in the back of my mind or in my subconscious mind. I'm experiencing something and assigning a negative meaning to it. That negative meaning assignment is causing me not to feel happy. That's on me.
So, one of the things that Damon, who's unfortunately can't be on this call tonight, we're, in designing our practice, this idea of the art and science of practice,
Right.
It kind of the cue that we want people to kind of understand as the trigger is the agitation, the discomfort. So instead of seeing like, oh my God, I'm feeling this way, and then they just go into to that pattern. It's like, so, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing something shitty. Oh, that's my cue to actually try something really healthy right now. So we wanted people to use the trigger, that agitation, as a way to say, oh, Rhonda said to pause. So I'm agitated. I'm going to pause. And then I'm going to go to a glass of water, or I'm going to move my body. I mean, those are the practices. The opportunity is in the agitation. That's the cue from a habit perspective.
It is from a habit perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's whatever you're experiencing doesn't serve you well, then yes, then you need to address that, name it, and that, which pulls it from the subconscious mind to your conscious mind. Mm-hmm. So I have a business partner, Dr. Sharon Montez, and I have been delivering a new program called Heart-Centered Stress Management. And there are several things that we believe that you can do as daily practices that will help you with getting out of your head, getting into your heart, and learning to regulate your nervous system so that you are in a position to make the choice. I can't tell you how many times people will say, well, just do something different or just think differently. And I try to think differently, but I can't manifest something differently because I'm still experiencing it based off of the programming that I have in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. So would you guys like to hear any of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lay it on us.
Yeah,
we're trying to create a practice here. So yeah.
All right, cool. So breathing, I know that you guys have probably talked about breathing. Have you, Scott, looked at the breath app that is on your phone?
Yes, they have. There's the one specifically on.
It's called Breath App.
Breath App.
And all you do is it's this ball, and you breathe in with the ball, and you breathe out. Okay, that one. Yep. So that's one. One of the best breathing activities. There's two that I really, really like. One is about rhythmic breathing. And that's where you clasp your hands in front, put your thumbs up right in front of your heart. And all you're going to do is a sideways 8. So it's called infinity breathing. And when you breathe in and you breathe out, now notice the neuroscience of this is I'm crossing my body.
Right.
The nervous system crossing my body. So I am in training my brain. I'm getting into some rhythmic breathing. And all I do is just breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Start to change and shift your nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, it's like something you do before you go to a meeting, in a meeting, after a meeting. I know if I got pissed off, I started doing that about somebody. I know somebody be like starting to freak out.
Well, yeah, I do this just more of, I've had a long day and I just want to kind of get into a groove. And I Qigong, if you've ever done Qigong, does a lot of figure eights, a lot of infinities with hands and stuff. This is just an easy one, tactile wise to do. One of the other ones that is good to do when you're going to, right before you go to a meeting, or if you're really frustrated and you're going to meet with somebody that just, triggers your subconscious mind, is called the starfish breathing. And this is also a Qigong exercise. And it's really simple. When you stand, you're going to take your hands, you're going to come up like a starfish, expand, and you're breathing in. And then when you breathe out, you're going to come all the way in. Have you ever seen a starfish expand and they close off, and they expand and they close off, right? So you're just going to come up, breathe in, and then you're going to close off. Now, let me tell you the physiology behind this, why this works. Breath work requires that you expand your chest cavity, drop the diaphragm so that the lungs can expand. Right? Mm-hmm. So by expanding this way, you're pulling your rib cage out, right? And it allows the diaphragm to drop and it allows your lungs to expand. And that also then tonifies the vagal nerve. When you bring it back in, you're exercising, right? You're bringing it back in and you're expanding. So, and then you're bringing it back in.
Yeah, and you're moving your spine too, which is, we Trisha was also a biomechanics expert, and she was a breath biomechanics, which is, you're doing all of that stuff, So I think that's the part that people don't realize, that that's something they have control over, that they can do, right? If they don't have the physical back issue, this one is definitely doable. But there are all those things where you apply movement and breath in a rhythmic way. It'll move you from sympathetic to parasympathetic pretty quickly. And I think that's the beauty of this.
So breath, you guys got that?
Yep.
The second thing is what we call Meridian vagal tapping. This one is one of my favorites. There's many ways to do this, but when you are stressed and frustrated, you remember I told you about, at a molecular level, this means your electrons and your molecules are wobbling, right? And you can feel that stagnant energy. You just want to burst out and smack someone, but that's because you're all bundled up with energy and you want the energy to flow. So one of the best to start with is that you start by tapping your chest. Now that activates the thymus gland, which is really good for lymphatics. So this is clearing up. You can do it 2 times. Now, all you're going to do is you're going to start tapping down your shoulder, down your arm. Give it a good tap. You really want to get that energy moving. Clap, yay me. You clap for yourself. Up you go in your arm. Then you're going to go, yay me. You clap for yourself. Up you go in your arm. Then you're going to go to the other side and you're going to tap down the arm. Give it a good tap. Yay me. Tap it all the way back up. Then when you get to here, you're going to go down your side, hit your buttocks. With me, it's like jelly moving. And you just kind of go down the side of the legs. You go to the inside of the legs and you come up to your abdomen and say, ah. You rub it and say, I love you. Then you can do it again. Now, I want everybody to try this. We're going to do it 2 times. Okay. So ready? Here we go. You're going to tap the chest first. Then you're going to go down your arm. Oh, give it a good tap. Say, yay me. I didn't hear anybody. Yay me. Say, yay me. Up the arm again. Tap the chest. Smiling. I love Scott's smile. Every time he smiles, it makes me smile. So yay me. Give a good. All right. And now down the side. Down the buttocks, down the back of the legs. If you're sitting in a chair, you can do it in the chair. Just go down the side of your legs and come up the inside, back to your belly. One more time. Here we go. Down the arms.
I have a very curious dog right now. He's like,
oh, good. He wants to play.
Yeah.
He wants to do it too. All right. And then tap, bring it in. Yep. Yay me. Good. Now we're going to go down our sides. All right. And then up our legs and back to our belly. And now just let your arms hang. Do you feel tingling in your hands? From Chinese medicine, what you just did is you opened up a meridian system that allows the qi, your natural vital life force energy, to flow. How do you feel? Kind of energized?
Anyone could say something. What do you feel? I feel pretty good. I mean, I had a dog gnawing at me, but other than that, I definitely feel my hands are tingling for sure. Awesome. Thanks, Avery.
I felt like I had a little massage.
Well, yeah, that's excellent way of describing. That is getting your energy to flow. Now, if you get your energy to flow and you sit down, were you thinking negative thoughts? Any of you? No. No, it's nearly impossible to have a negative thought pattern when your qi, your vital life force, is flowing. Because remember, thoughts are associated to feeling. There's a huge association to it. So if you're having a negative thought or you're feeling frustrated, fearful, angry, take a pause. Get your breathing in a rhythmic pattern, tap on your meridian channels to get your energy flowing, and just sit with it. It will allow you to be able to reframe your thought and assign a different meaning.
You know, it's interesting. You're familiar with Amy Feldman Barrett's work? Yeah, because she really kind of speaks to this in, from a neuroscience perspective. And the one thing that I really love is, if the brain is a prediction machine, and, part of the prediction is tied to our past, unfortunately. So that 5%, is really, I think 5% is high for a new thought, honestly. And then she also says that emotions are merely guesses, right? So, but it's based upon the track that you're playing. And so if I'm feeling this in this situation, then I guess, or if this is happening to me in this situation, I guess I should feel this. And so it's really fascinating because she's kind of wiped out the whole triune brain theory, and really kind of is speaking to that interoception, that, the mind-body connection in a way. And I think it's that the neuroscience is actually catching up to Chinese medicine in a lot of ways.
That is so true. So if I can leave a message for you to write on a sticky note and ingrain in your brain, there's two thoughts. One is energy flows where intention goes.
Yep.
Right here with the tip.
Memorize that, because if I have to check in with myself. What's my intention about this situation? Do I intend to be angry and want to bite someone's head off? Then my energy is going to manifest that, right? The other thing that is really important is energy is felt before words are heard. So I tell you to take a pause for that reason. Before you act, react, say anything, if you are triggered, just take a pause. Energy is felt before words. Oh, someone wrote that in there. Okay, it popped up. Wow. Yeah, so the power of thought. Now I want to unpack that again. There are three parts of your body that has a mind, a thinking mind to it: the brain, the heart, and the gut.
Well, on that point, I think that a lot of people is really coming out how the gut brain, they're doing. I mean, the research on this is fascinating around how gut health is tied to mental health, because serotonin is being, produced there. So there's a lot of really cool research. I mean, it's relatively new, but a lot of people, I think, hopefully over the next few years, it becomes more a part of our daily practice of understanding the importance of gut health, because there is a lot going on down there, especially as it relates to our mental health.
Yeah. And so it's always like the chicken and the egg. Where do you start? The gut health. So there are systems that are connected, right? So your nervous system regulates everything in the body. It's the communication highway of the body. The nervous system is, right? So if your nervous system is not in balance, you are definitely going to have hormonal imbalances. Your immune system is going to struggle. It will be suppressed. Your gut health is going to be affected by it. So do you fix your gut first? Do you fix your hormones first? This is what you always go to the doctors, and the doctor says, well, here's a hormone pill, go take that. And that's it. They don't tell you how to handle the stressors in your body. They don't tell you how to regulate your nervous system, right? You go to a gastroenterologist and they'll say, here, take a protein, a PPI, sorry, having a brain fog right now. But they give you medicine for your stomach, which suppresses the acid release of your stomach, which you need to digest food properly, right? So then the little microbiome in your gut gets out of balance. So the question is where do you start? And from the bioenergetics that I've learned, and from Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine, is about getting your energy to flow. We are electrical beings. The information highway starts and ends in our electrical system in our body. So it makes sense to work on that system in order to regulate all the other systems. So that means learning the parasympathetic, the sympathetic, the vagal nerves, the ventral dorsal vagal, and so on.
So you did the breath, breathing, and movement. You did the Meridian vagal tapping. Are there other little exercises, because I mean, it reminds me a lot of the qigong stuff that I've been familiar with. It's a lot of similar exercises that you've demonstrated. So what are some other ones
So
that
let me
people decide to say, I
possibly
wanna- yeah.
introduce something new to you, maybe.
Okay, great.
We like new stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's why you come here. It's give me some new stuff. All right. So a new one is I'm also a auricular therapist. So what that means is I'm a trained, I guess you would call it an ear acupuncturist. I don't use needles. I use a device that provides electrical stimulus. Now, what we have found is that all of the nerves from the functional systems in your body and the organs end in your hands. You've heard of reflexology in your feet, right? And in the ears. And so by simply rubbing and massaging your ears, you can switch into parasympathetic from sympathetic. Now, how many of you guys have ever seen a baby who's uncomfortable or a baby that starts to cry? What do? They grab their ear. They suck their thumb and they grab their ear. If they have an upset belly, they're grabbing their ear because it's a biological instinct to soothe your body from your ears because of the nerve endings in your ears. So without going into a great anatomy and physiology of the ear, the brain nerves are in your earlobe. So if you just massage your earlobe when your brain hurts or you're overthinking, put a little lavender oil and massage it onto your lobe, you will feel so much calmer. If you massage in the upper part of your ears, right in the little crease, you can feel a crease in the ear. I wish I had the ear anatomy chart with me right now. Massage, those are where the autonomic nervous system is, at the very top of your ear. If you have allergies, if you massage at the very top of your ear, underneath the little lip of the ear, and massage it for about 30 seconds, you can actually change the histamine response in your body. These are all Chinese points, and they're really great. My mom has COPD, and so she's on oxygen 24/7. So she always has issues with allergies or breathing. And so I'm always getting the call about every 2 days, can you come and do an auricular allergy points? Can you help me calm my nervous system down? So just by massaging your ear, and if you add a little lavender oil, it will switch your nervous system. Now, one that everyone knows about, but probably doesn't know why it works, is yawning. Yawn. If you're feeling stressed, yawn. And after you do, see, I get myself. After you do a real good yawn, notice how your physiology sinks. You'll feel this kind of, because it actually works. The facial muscles is a cranial nerve there that innervates with the vagus nerve, which is a cranial nerve. So by yawning, you're actually activating the vagus nerve, which is your parasympathetic or your relaxation nerve. So
well, and this goes, I mean, this goes back to when you talk about the facial expressions as well. I mean, before we started the call, I was also, sharing with Rhonda, I think, Damon and I, we both shared it in these calls of how our nervous systems are talking to each other, right? And a lot of it is conveyed through micro gestures, facial gestures, and you can see a lot through just the face, but it's also sending a message because it's the vagus nerve is actually conveying. I mean, you can see when someone's in stress or trauma, you can see it in their eyes. You can see it. I mean, it looks really phenomenal. And then they change their state and their eyes light up a little bit more. Their face becomes tighter at times. I mean, it's so subtle, but if we're not paying attention, if we don't have the awareness, and I think it's important from someone who, if we're in this kind of work of caring for people, noticing and checking in with people, that's also an important role I think we could be playing with this stuff as a practice.
So let's kind of unpack that from education standpoint, right? Because I think we're here to learn, is the fact that smiling, facial recognition, those nerves, like I said, are facial nerves that innervate with the vagus nerve. Now, what does the vagus nerve regulate? The vagus nerve regulates respiration, heart rate, gut, digestion, right? So if you think about that, if I just smile all the time, whether I feel like it or not, my body will shift energetically because it is activating the vagus nerve, and you're tonifying the vagus nerve when you just smile.
And for those of you who are interested, if you want to take a deeper dive into the vagus nerve, Stephen Porges, who's kind of the pioneer in what's called Polyvagal Theory, it's really tied to helping people get unstuck from trauma. But the key to it is, and I think as you guys think about, if you guys want to play with us next month in the practice exercise, choose something that is novel and that you feel comfortable and safe doing, right? So those are what we're finding here in Butte County with some of the fire victims who've been dealing with trauma, is giving them some experience of novelty, but also making sure the psychological safety is keyed in there so that they're willing to practice that new behavior, that novel behavior. And again, so I just want people to recognize that as you go through making some choices, pursue something novel that'll be a stretch for you, but also make sure that you just have the safety around you to make sure that you can have the support to do it.
That's right. Your body will not allow you to make a different choice unless it feels safe. Mm-hmm. Your subconscious mind is programmed to keep for survival. Your brain is programmed for survival. So it will always keep you in what it perceives as a safe space, a comfort space. So if you want to make a change, really make a change in your life, you have to be sure that you're feeling safe. Your nervous system is registering information, input coming in is safe for you. So that's cool.
The group, and you have any questions? What's been ruminating in your head? Like, do you have well, what about this? I think this a lot. Is there something wrong with me? Probably not, but let's open it up for some questions if that's okay, Rhonda.
Yeah, please. I'd
Martha,
much rather talk.
What do you got?
Discuss.
Yeah, what do you got, Martha?
So I'm back at thinking about the unconscious mind, and in the 5%. So is that to say that the unconscious mind doesn't have any new thoughts?
Right. The subconscious mind is conditioned. It's programmed. Think about it as a software program in a computer. You're right. You code it. You coded the program, and it just keeps running until you get a different code. So the subconscious mind is it's conditioned. It's habitual.
So basically, how I kind of think about it is a couple things. Most of the way that you have learned to cope with today, you learned before you were even 7 years old, right? Because it was because your brain was learning strategies, right, to keep you safe. And so, and this is why when we talking about ACEs scores and dealing with children, I know, Martha, you work in that space. The brain is basically teaching that body strategies to keep them safe, but that strategy they learned at that age will be carried with them well into the future. So it's non-conscious. I see, Mark, subconscious and unconscious are definitely very different. I mean, living in Chico, unconscious means going to the bear late at night, but the subconscious definitely. In some neuroscience circles, we talk about non-conscious as well. So non-conscious, subconscious. It's kind of but I do think it's really important to recognize that a lot of the choices that we're making in the moment are tied to these past experiences that have been now non-conscious. They're under the radar, basically. And so I always like to frame it this way. Martha, have you ever said growing up, I'm never going to do what my parents did? And then you find yourself, oh my God, I sound like my mom. It's like, that's part of that non-conscious. That's a simple, fun way of kind of looking at it.
Yeah. And so think of the subconscious mind as, let's say, as a young toddler, right? And you're learning how to walk. And so it's a process. So you get up and you fall, and you get up and you fall, and eventually you get your balance, right? And once you learn how to walk, you are not thinking any longer about, I got to take one step here and one step here, because it's now become a habitual program in your subconscious mind. And it becomes what we call mind-body thinking. right? That's what you were saying earlier, Scott, when we were talking about how the mind or the body is a thinking in itself, right? So your whole body becomes mindful. It's a mind of its own because now it's habitual. So now you don't think about walking. You get up and you go walking and you get a glass of water and you're not thinking about walking because it's become habitual. And that's what's in your subconscious mind.
I don't have to focus on walking after so many drinks. I'm just kidding. Just teasing. I haven't had a drink in a long time. So, other questions? Other questions? Anything else that you're rooming? I guess a question.
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Real quick. Martha, something came up in your mind that led you to ask that question. Is there something more?
Well, I was just so there are two aspects of it. One was it feels like that I could have like implicit bias.
Okay.
Under the radar.
Right.
The coding is there, but my reaction would feel novel.
Yeah.
So I feel like there would be a new conclusion still, that there would be processing under the surface that
only if you brought it to the conscious awareness. See, you're bringing it to conscious awareness just by talking about it. So then at that point, when it becomes conscious awareness, then you're able to assign a meaning to it and you can feel it. It will feel something different other than what you thought it would be. That's a conscious mind working, not a subconscious mind.
Okay. And the other aspect was normalizing struggle. So I actually, and whether that's, and where that is, I actually like to, when I notice I'm struggling, to go like, oh, okay. Like it's not like thinking, oh, this is a disaster. I'm struggling. What's wrong with me? My life is broken. It's not perfect. Oh, But to say like, oh, wait, this is one of those struggle moments. Oh, wait, I have a jerk in the meeting. Oh, wait, like, my best self will say, oh, goody. Let's go. Bring it on,
So the beauty of what you just said just kind of reinforces what we've been talking about is you get to choose how you're going to assign a meaning to the experience you're having. Yeah. And you are consciously choosing to say, oh, wait, this is not a bad struggle. This is a good struggle, right? But it's a choice. You're making a choice to have that, assign that meaning to the experience. Now, when you choose that assignment, the meaning assignment to that experience, you have a whole different physiological, you feel different. A biochemistry shifts differently than if you would say, oh crap, I have to deal with them again, right? So beautiful, well stated. That was actually exactly how we handle the power of thought. It is the one thing that we have choice over. That was well said, Martha. Yay. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a 7.5-year-old, and he's emotionally very in tune, I would say. But when he's confronted with things that he's not in favor of, or then he has an immediate emotional response to it. And one of the things is that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, so he can't really regulate himself. So he's reactive rather than that he can regulate himself. But is there anything else like to that?
Yeah. So yes. So the brain develops like the rest of the body, and the brain has particular wave patterns for different ways of experiencing the external world or internal world even. So from the age of, I don't know, from womb to the second year, their brain waves are in delta, which is really the sleep pattern. Like I was explaining earlier, the reason why babies sleep so much isn't because they want to sleep, it's because their brains are in delta. They just sleep until the brain wave moves to theta. All right. And theta is like that time, it's the twilight and the sunset of the day. Like right before you're waking up in the morning, you're feeling kind of groggy and in this dream state, that's theta. That is between 2 and 7. Between 7 and 12, they go into alpha, and alpha is our meditative state. That's where we focus. When you're meditating, you're going into alpha and theta, alpha, theta. That's where you want to go in meditation. So if you think about a 7-year-old, what is theta? Theta is imagination. Theta is world isn't really real. They don't know what real really means. It's just all about experience, right? It's like when you have a tea party, like I have a great niece who is 5 and she loves her tea parties. And every Thursday when I have her over, we drink tea, and to her, she's tasting the tea. Whatever flavor she decides it's going to be today, that's what she's actually experiencing. So a 7-year-old in theta brainwaves is experiential. They're experiencing everything, including their own emotions, right? So yes, they tend to be a little bit more emotional. They tend to have great imaginations, and we as adults struggle with our young people being in that state of existence. So we tend to want to create boundaries, or we want to say stop, or we want to try to process with them. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? And they don't really know. They're just experiencing life. Imagine what it's like for you right before you fall asleep, right? I mean, right when you're just dozing off and you're in that good slumber. And then, like I was telling Scott earlier, and someone comes up and wakes you up and says, hello, wait, I'm not done talking to you. I have more to say. And you're like in that state and like, oh my God, would you stop? Right? Because you're in that brainwave that you don't want to process. You can't process someone talking to you. That's why sometimes men have a hard time listening to their wives at night, because men get into a theta wave, brainwave, a whole lot quicker than women do. So women tend to like to just keep chatting, and men are like, oh, would you, when they fall asleep, right? 7-year-olds, the same way. They're in a theta wave pattern. So to try to reason or process with them, they don't know why sometimes they're feeling the way they are. So what do we do when someone is in that state? Is you hug them, right? You work on the sensory systems. You give them something pleasant to eat. You take them where they feel safe. You give them a stuffed animal to hold. It's something, comforting. That's all they can process. That makes sense to them because their sensory system is gathering information, right? And that's all you do is you reason it. So if they're really emotional and you don't know, they're just struggling emotionally, you gather them up and you say, you're okay. It's all good. It's all good.
It's really interesting as you're talking, Rhonda. What keeps coming up for me again in terms of as an adult, right, and the waves that I kind of surf throughout the day is recognizing that we're all meaning makers, right, and that we're choosing to put meaning into every experience, but a lot of the meaning we tie to is based upon our past. And so, what are some of the tips to kind of get unstuck from those old ones? And I know we're almost out of time here. We might go over a little bit, but I think there are some moments where we sometimes feel stuck. And are there any tips to kind of getting unstuck?
Wow, there's a lot of tips for getting unstuck.
Well,
the
like
first
just
one,
one or two, yeah.
The first one is so there's several things. If you have the ability to really monitor yourself and do some self-reflection or self-regulation, which is a skill, then I think Martha named it perfectly, is make a choice to assign a different meaning. Take a pause, bring to awareness what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and then reframe it, assign a different meaning to it. Now, there are a lot of people who struggle with that and they really can't do that. So then you need a little bit more assistance. So if you were to work with someone who is able to do biofeedback, heart rate variability is one way to do that. Mm-hmm. Perception reframing. In our program, my program, we actually use the Safe and Sound protocol that is, Stephen Porges' work, and it's sound therapy. So it's just using sounds, these particular songs and the intonation of certain words to create this pattern, this rhythm, self-regulation. So people who come to our program, we put them through this sound therapy program for 8 weeks. And then every week they learn a new skill, like the breathing, the rhythmic breathing, the vagal toning. We do playful sounds. Another thing that you can do is when you take a pause, count down backwards, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You'll be surprised that how just saying when you start to get anxious or you're not able to regulate, and this is something you could teach your 7-year-old to do. It's to say, okay, you're all revved up. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Counting backwards actually triggers something in the brain that moves out of the hyperarousal state in the sympathetic. So just by going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, all these little tips that you're sharing and have shared, Rhonda, are just, again, I hope that there's been some usefulness that you guys can see you can apply, because again, we want to kind of move into the month of May as the month of practice, and hopefully you're seeing Joseph just put a link. I think we're ready to go. It's live now, the website. So Rhonda, I want to kind of be conscious of everyone's time and your time. Really appreciate it. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, so my website, unfortunately, right now was hacked. And so I have my tech person getting rid of the malware, virus, whatever's in it. And so as soon as that is up, I will send that to you, Scott. You can send it to the team. But if you have any questions, I'm typing in here my email address, which np.com. So here is my email address, and by all means, I love questions, I love dialogues, I love challenges. I love the fact that you guys allowed me to talk to you all for a good hour. So thank you. That was clearly a blessing to me.
Well, you're a blessing, Rhonda. It's been fun to work with you. It's been fun to kind of get to know you, and not only as a colleague, but as a friend and someone that I know I could reach out to if I have a question around some of this stuff. But I do think that a lot of people that have listened, people that I know are working with environments where there is a lot of change, a lot of agitation. And so, I'm thinking Rhody, I'm also thinking Margaret, how do we help people reframe the change in a way that's, because there's a lot of threats out there that we're helping people unpack. So I really appreciate your time. And you're getting some kudos from people. So thank you, everybody.
You guys are just blessing me. Thank you so much. I just feel really blessed to be here with all of you. And I hope whatever I shared, helps you in your journey.
Well, and next week we're going to have a guy named Dan Seawald joining us. He was he founded the Pfizer Innovation Lab, and he's going to be talking about really, again, a lot around the power of practice, specifically around innovation and creativity. So if you say to yourself, "I'm not very creative," it's one to go to, because he's pretty creative. So anyway, Rhonda, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.